Yeah. Welcome back to daily number 639, where we're watching Apocalypse do some non-biomining. What? Sets himself up for this very nice attack with not particularly complicated spreading, not particularly complicated micro, but we see it's very difficult throughout any of these engagements for the Mutalist to try to pick off outlying units, as is very common in biomine, because we have a Thor. It's very difficult for Zerglings to rush in and pick off mines. Well, for one, there are no mines, but also there are hellbats, which really mess up these big Zergling flood-ins. We can also be much less predictable. With this army, if there was, say, a big counterattack that moved down this backside here, we could easily pull back. Much, much, much faster than a biomining force could be. We talked also a little bit about how the Banelings are not nearly as... not really going to do as much damage. It's very nice when you're up against a sort of fixed Baneling Mutaforce. And it's just pure muscle. I would say that this is probably the best answer for Zerg, is like mass numbers of Banelings and slightly less emphasis on the Mutalists. Most players do tend to be more in the many Mutas, couple of Banelings route, because of the fact that that's the best way to deal with biomine. But there Suppy was in a corner, built a lot of Banelings, which does tend to be a little bit of the unfortunate in this engagement. But at the same time, if you're timing the attack properly, and especially doing a little surprise, I'm not going biomine trick, like, you know, doing the swing-in attack that we saw in the early game, then it also means you can force your opponent to be making a lot more Mutalisks than he'll ordinarily want to be. I actually almost wonder if pure Baneling with no Mutalisks is the best choice for this. I mean, the Thors make it so hard to engage that well. So once again, 18 Banelings, 16 Mutalisks. Let's see how little the Mutalisks do in this circumstance. They dart up. Basically just deal with the Thor. So with the Baneling dealing with everything else and the Thor being the big target for the Mutalisks, it's pretty straightforward. And with the 4th base up, yeah, Hellbat's being produced. The big thing that there's not as much being produced of is medevacs throughout all this. I mean, you can't just afford everything. Actually, the Apocalypse knocked at 3-3. Oh, he did. Doesn't know why I'm being a dummy. I'm going to speed this up so we can get into the next game. I'd also like to note that one of the big things that we also see out of Apocalypse is, oh gosh, I can't believe I didn't mention this, is that in this position I think it's very tempting to just flood out. Alright, sound should be back. So, the one thing that's really interesting about Apocalypse in this position is that if he's starting to get into this nice positional advantage, as in he's sort of forced his opponent into a box where he can't really be making that many Banelings. In other words, when it's time to ramp up the aggression, we'll see out of Apocalypse almost exclusively Marine production. Like, he just blasts out as many Marines as he can. Look at the production. Just Marines. Yeah, he's starting to get some Hellbats in there. But you imagine, this, you can easily micro this against a tiny number of Banelings. And if we're probably going to be up against tiny numbers of banelings, we may as well just continue to flood only Marines. And now it's time for sound to die again. Alright, here we go. Excellent. Derelict Watcher, nice. So in this game, we're going to see the same thing. With things starting to not go so cleanly for Apocalypse. So this game is going to be an example of when this composition starts to struggle, and we'll get to see why it struggles. And then we'll see a really weird, crazy Game 3 if there's enough time. Build opening out of Apocalypse is going to be the same. Doink. Reaper.
Upgrade.
Following the Reaper, another Reaper. Following the Reaper, a command center. And then a factory. Then a reactor for the factory. No gas yet. I think it should be thrown down before the starport like that. I like that. Doink. Double Hellion production gets started. Third command center gets started.
Upgrade.
We see absolutely no bunker. That's a big corner to cut. But that's what the Reaper is about.
Complete.
The Reaper is he who gets all knowledge. Yeah, yawning. So Reaper leads. Hellions are a little behind to, again, be a little bit more conservative. We could go Viking first. We could go for Medevac first. It's a little option that Apocalypse opens up for himself by doing this.
Add-on complete.
What do you know? I'm kind of expecting Stim to be going down. Ooh, what a surprise. If you've never seen this style, it's pretty suave. Banshee en route. So it's certainly a different opening, but the same themes are still there. We want to go for a gas opening so we can do some gas-based aggression. And then we're going to use this aggression to help us set up our biomine stepping stone. And I call it the stepping stone because we're going to be transitioning out of that bad boy immediately. I'm also noting, wow, holy crap, that's a late hatch. But Apocalypse is just going to go Hellion. Blasting in. I'm always a little leery of these. I mean, this is awesome, dude. Oh, he lined those up so good. But I'm just scared because right now Apocalypse has just like no defense. He has nothing to contain or control, which is one of the big reasons why I think these Banshees are critical with this medevac play. Because what if he did a counter all in? What if he went for Baneling Roach? We wouldn't be able to see it. We wouldn't be able to have our Banelings pick off our Hellions pick off the Banelings or anything like that. So we see a Banshee move out and actually cut through the middle to help protect that. The Banshees would be the amazing tool to help us stay alive throughout that. But again, it's a defensive tool, so how do we turn that into offensive? Oh yeah. We just move on out. So look at that. Now Apocalypse is like, whoa! Definitely going to want to keep these back for a little bit longer to make sure that there's no all-in coming. All this other stuff is pretty expected. I mean, he's getting more barracks, he's getting the double engineering bay upgrades. The factory is just a big add-on building dude. He's not doing so much. This appearance of Mutalisks is really surprising for most Terran players. Again, I was talking about the, whoa, that's crazy, what an early third. That's always a signal that the layer came up first. If the layer didn't come up first, there would really not be that much defense there to be able to keep that alive. Come on, coffee. Come on, coffee. I gotta stay. Oh, I forgot to say. I'm playing Mirror's Edge tomorrow. Now, normally I am slow and exploratory, but because it's a parkour game, let me sprint through that whole thing. I mean, it's going to be the think as little as possible and plan as little as possible so that way we can run as fast as possible. Hope the control schema is good. We're going to go mass twitch action reflex mode. What? By the way, what on earth happened with Mirror's Edge? It came out and everyone was like, it's a fine game, it's really disappointing. I really think that it was somewhat of a lackluster combat system. And then like 5 years later, everyone's like, oh yeah, that was like my favorite game. I loved when EA took bold risks. Alright. So Apocalypse has just lost all his Banshees, but we still see that the Banshees were a nice bit of defense that were needed at a particularly needful time. Mines being produced right away. I think that's a reasonable thing to do, just because we're like, oh my gosh, Muta's coming out so fast. So this is a kind of gross, turtly, dirtily spot to be in. So Apocalypse needs to establish position. He needs to establish a little bit of control in this game. So what does he do? We're noticing not an immediate transition into this Marine Marauder Hellbat mixture. In fact, until he gets this third up, that's what's very nice about a biomine mixture. It's relatively cheap. Can easily be done off 2 bases.
Research complete.
And we see Apocalypse being amazingly passive with this. I mean, the second factory is coming on up. He's moving his Marines around to be able to deal with all these forces, but surprisingly passive throughout all this. So that way he can establish control of his expos. And we're going to see the same basic little maneuver. Couple of mines out. He moves forward with this force that has mines in it. The mines are going to reinforce. He's going to be able to pick off creep tumors as the typical biominer would. But with almost no mines, Apocalypse is now getting ready to just slam out a whole bunch of Hellbats. Even going so far as to get a second armory for 2/2 upgrades. And what this game is going to reveal is that Apocalypse even has this notion of going for, oh my god, that sucks so bad. He just lost a lot. How much did he lose there? Oh my god, that's so painful. Apocalypse even has this plan to start going for a lot of metal as the time goes on. Isn't that cool? He's basically going bio into mech, a la old school Brood War, end of era. These mines are not new mines, they were just stuck in there because they were supply blocked. Unfortunately, Suppy killed off like every SCV here, so now Apocalypse is not so supply blocked. We see this sort of same cool force, we see these sort of same laws, really favoring Marines to cutting them, cutting the rest of everything else, which I think is risky in these huge numbers. But it's still saving a lot of the gas to be able to get Thors up, to be able to get the Thor upgrades up. Not that he really needs to save gas. I'm just making statements that are true. So, I mean, I don't quite know how much I like this transitioning period, where it's like, okay, I'm flooding Marines. I almost feel like it was one of those autopilot modes where he's like, okay, well, I'm just going to be getting Marines because I can afford them right now, and because I'm having trouble getting up all this other stuff. And this is where we see Suppy begin to get in a real good position, when he starts to be able to have mass Banelings and everything else. Because there's not the Hellbats here to be able to deal well with the Banelings. There's not the Thors here to be able to deal well with all that other stuff. It's like just a Marine Marauder force, which is still pretty scary as is. So in this spot, what I think is kind of interesting is that Suppy has his 4 bases up. No ability to apply pressure to the 4th base. I actually think that would have been very reasonable for Apocalypse to begin biomine shoving early and then delay this transition into this thor+hellbat force. Because by waiting so long, it's sort of given Suppy just a huge window of time to get all his magical stuff up. Now, if we can pin him down on going just Ling Baneling Muta, going for like a really weird like thor+hellbat Marine mixture with a lot of factories and not as many barracks, that can actually be really powerful because, I mean, what really good layer tech or what really good composition with Ling, Baneling, Mutalisk. I mean, what does he get? More Banelings. Obviously, more Zerglings doesn't work. Obviously, more Mutalisk doesn't work if he's going like Thor Marine. So basically, pins him to what? Only Banelings in that spot? It's really hard. But, I mean, that only can happen if Zerg's under pressure. Because, like, right now, two things are true. Suppy's gotten the opportunity to build up whatever he wants. And the other thing is that a lot of anything is the best answer to any composition. So I think these drops are fine. I like these drops, so long as it, like, gets Suppy out of position. But Suppy has, like, so much stuff that he just, like, places all of his armies in both spots easily. So we can see what the problem is. This transition is really cool conceptually. Is really nice.